Okay, so welcome to the On the Slab Horror Show with me, as always, your host, Ian the Dynamo Kelly, joined as always by my right-hand man and my left-hand man, the G-Man, Greg Flanagan, and of course, the mighty Carl King Woe. And today, we welcome back a very, very special guest who I didn't get to meet the last time that he was on the show. But he is a very special guest nonetheless. It is Mr. Ben Scrivens from Fright Rags Horror. Ben, first and foremost, you as the guest of honor and the returning guest, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much, guys. It was thank you for asking me back, and it's definitely good to be on here again.
Thanks for coming back, man.
It was a very fun show the last time.
Yeah, we had a great time. That was a lot of fun.
That one last time was more talking shop about how you got started and whatnot. So we'll just even run through that a little bit quickly. How's business going for you?
It's going really good. God, when did we talk? Was it late last year or was it
November?
November, I think it was, yeah.
That's right. So, we ended up our last year was our biggest year ever. Which was was insane. And then even rolling into this year, it's been pretty wild. So no complaints. It's just trying to, keep a hold on everything. We got a lot of projects in the works, a lot of different things. That's always a logistical headache to try to figure out, but fun and exciting stuff. And that's really for us around here. If we're not having fun or getting excited about what we're doing, there's going to be a problem. So that's we always try to maintain that. And I think we've got a lot of good things coming down the pipeline.
And that's a pretty badass shirt that you've got on there. If I don't mind, if you don't mind me saying so, I am a massive fan of the Halloween franchise, as the lads know. Obviously, I didn't see it last time, so I'm sure we'll get to catch up on some of your favorite horrors, including the Halloween franchise. But that's just a little example of the kind of beautiful shirts that you guys produce and sell at Fright Rags.
Quick peer to my one as well.
That was one of our. That was a limited edition. We did. That was Jeff Zorno. We did that's got to be what, 9 years old.
No, it might be 9 years old. Yeah.
Yeah. And then shout out. What's that?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was say shout out to Justin Osborne. He's one of our flagship artists who did this shirt, and he's done a ton of other stuff for us, and he's definitely top as far as what we do, and our artists definitely up at the top with some of the other people we work with. So very fortunate to have him on the crew as well.
Ben, just out of interest, he's not a musician as well, is he?
Actually, he is. I'm trying to remember. He used to tour with a band years ago, but I can't remember what he played and what the name of the band it was.
Wasn't it Electric Wizard, was it?
Oh, I don't know. I'll ask him.
Please do, because I'd be very interested to have a chat with him as well.
Okay. Yeah,
that's the same Justin Osborne I'm thinking.
I'll be honest with you. I do. How long ago do you think was it?
Well, they're gone in nearly 20 years, I'd say.
Probably. 15,
I don't think that was him then. I don't think that was him because he's younger than me. He's like 10 years younger than me, I think.
Oh, right, okay.
It's probably not him, but I believe he was in a band and toured a little bit, but I don't. I'll ask him anyway.
Cool. Thanks. That'll be interesting. But so we're talking about last time we really did focus on Halloween as a favorite of yours. Mm-hmm. But what other kind of what's your favorite? Have you got a particular favorite type of genre of horror film or?
Yeah, I mean, I was always a slasher kid because of Halloween. That was the first movie I ever watched when I was a kid, a horror movie. So, I mean, it was this idea that somebody could stalk around in a mask and kill people, right? So every time, again, this was, I saw Halloween in 1981. So this is very, very early on in the home video era. In fact, where I live in Rochester, New York, was a sort of a testing city for VHS versus Beta. And we were very early adopters to the Beta machine. So we had a Beta, and for a long time, maybe a couple of years, you can get Betas everywhere along with VHS. And then it started, whittling down to where it was just VHS, and it was harder and harder to find Beta. And we ended up, of course, getting VHS. But I would spend a lot of time as a kid, and we had about 5 or 6 video stores within a 7 or 8 mile radius of us. I would go there with my family or my friends or whatever, and just look at the back of each box and like, what is this about? And they're like, obviously the box art would always catch our attention. But then I'd look and I'd go, oh my God, this is about a guy in a mask that kills people. Great, let's get it, and bonus points on a holiday, right? So
absolutely.
Slashers for me were always like a favorite. I got into zombies, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn and Day a little bit later in my teens and stuff. And of course, Evil Dead and those types of films. I wasn't as into foreign horror, mostly I think because of it not being as accessible. I mean, again, we're talking 80s and even into the 90s where it's not like you could download it, right? Or there was no internet at the time, or at least, in the early days. So there was a lot of things I missed. There were some that I wish I would have seen earlier on, like The Beyond, or, even Zombie. I don't think I watched until I was older. Pieces. God, I love that movie so much.
Brilliant.
And I could have seen it when I was younger. It was available. It was out there, but I remember seeing the cover, but I just never rented it. But of course, as a kid, I fell into the Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street because they were making them every year. Halloween, I had 1 and 2. 3, I didn't like when I was young because no one liked it because it wasn't Michael. Now, I love Halloween 3. It's one of my favorites of all time. But
me too.
As a child, all I wanted to watch was Michael Myers. And before Halloween 4 came out, it was Friday the 13th, Friday the 13th, Friday the 13th every year. It was like clockwork. So that was great, as a kid. And then Nightmare on Elm Street. So I definitely loved those, and obviously when Hellraiser came out and Child's Play. So I ran the gamut, but slasher was my genre. That's what I loved.
Awesome. Tell me one thing, Ben. When you mentioned artwork there, I've always been a big, art fan anyway. Through comics and looking at my cousin's Geiger posters on the wall and not understanding what was going on. The trip to the video store, we mentioned this a lot on this show. The two boys will tell you. We're big creatures kind of nostalgia, I suppose, because of our age, and the VHS tape it's kind of like a lost it's not even a lost art because the movie itself has been filmed on camera, but it's just the collection side of things. And obviously you sell to collectors, you know what I mean? When you saw the likes of Ghoulies or something like that, just to use as an example, you saw like the artwork of like Ghoulies or Basket Case or something like this, was it a case that each week you kind of found yourself going, right, I just need to see this at one point, I'm going to get 2 tonight, we're going to go next Friday and we're going to get another 2, and just kind of picking up whatever you could find? Was that kind of a habit that you formed early on?
Yeah, so there was one, I did visit a lot of stores, but the one store that I could go to on a regular was about a mile away from my house. It was actually on the way to my school, and I walked to school most of my childhood. So it was a little less than a mile away from my house. So I had to walk through their parking lot to get to my school to cut through. And it was called Video Box Office. And it was a very small store. I mean, it was tiny. I mean, they did have the, saloon doors in the back into the adult section, but in terms of its overall selection, I mean, they crammed a lot in there, but it was tiny. And so the horror selection was a decent size, but it still wasn't, massive, not like later on when Blockbuster came or whatever, but it had plenty of movies. Don't get me wrong. That was the place I went to literally every week with my friends or even by myself. In fact, when I was 9 years old, I remember going to rent something, and every time I'd go to rent a horror movie, because I was 9, they would ask if it was okay with my parents, and they would call my parents, and so finally my parents said, can I just sign the back of my son's card so you don't have to call me every time? Like, just let him rent what he wants, basically. Which was amazing. I was the youngest I was the youngest of 4 kids. So by the time I came around, it was sort of like, I don't even know where he is, but so I was like, I had like the keys to the kingdom. I mean, I remember going into the store to get a movie, and one of my buddies was with me, and he was actually like 6 months older than me, which, when you're 12, that means a big deal, right?
Yeah.
And the woman behind the counter was like, is he okay to watch this? I was like, yeah, he's fine. So
he's okay.
But I did find myself, I find myself running the same movies over and over again, because again, we couldn't buy them. If you remember, those tapes, they were priced for rental stores. So, in the US, it was $90 for a VHS tape. Like, I was 12. When was I getting $90 for anything, right? So, or even younger. So you couldn't buy them, so you had to rent them. So I would like Friday the 13th Part 3, just use an example. I rented that like every week, in the summer or something. And so I did find myself seeing titles that I was honestly at the time too scared to rent. I was too scared to rent Faces of Death because I thought it was real. And I remember my buddy and I got it on Halloween on our way home from school. We walked in there, we got it, we came home, we went to my parents' bedroom, closed the door, and put it on their little 13-inch set and watched it. And we were freaked out, like freaked us because we thought it was real. Everyone thought it was real back then. There were definitely some titles though that I looked at and was like, even Texas Chainsaw Massacre took me a while because I just thought, oh God, this is going to be intense. And I ended up renting it on a Sunday afternoon, and I watched it in my living room that joins up with my kitchen, and my mom was cooking dinner, and all it was screaming after screaming. And I was like trying to turn it down and waiting for her to because even though my parents let me watch this stuff, they'd still be like, what the hell are you doing? Like, get that, turn that crap off, So I did not enjoy the first viewing of that movie for that reason, but obviously it's become one of my favorites. But yeah, there's always titles, that you kind of look at and go like, I don't know, that one looks a little crazy, or I'm not sure about that one. And most of them I think I got around to, but even, it was a bunch. It was when I was older,
That's a good segue, I can guarantee, into Carl's next question that you mentioned, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So Carl, I think I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks. Did you enjoy the latest Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Here's the thing. We actually had a very long conversation about this at the office today. We were discussing it. And I'll tell you what, I went in with zero expectations. And so every Friday night, my friends and I, actually my one friend lives here in town, but our friend Joanna lives in Virginia. But we've been doing this thing for years called a terror tweet. So you get on Twitter, you use the hashtag terror tweet, and at 10 p.m. Eastern time where I am, you put the movie on. Like, you have to either rent it or own it. We usually try to pick movies that you can get on like Shudder or Netflix or something.
Yeah.
And we all started at 10 p.m. and we just live tweet, and we use the hashtag terror tweet so you can follow along. So 2 weeks ago, we did the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre as a terror tweet. And as soon as that was over, I started the new one.
All right.
And I had had a few drinks. I was definitely, feeling no pain. I was just like, thrill me, basically, right? And I had fun with it. And I'll tell you what, the hate that this movie is getting, I just don't understand. Because as Chris, who works with me, said, it's the 9th film of this franchise. Let's be honest with each other, right? It's number 9 in this franchise. What do you expect? Also, there's been a lot of people talking about, it's woke. Well, okay, number 1, watch the original movie. These kind of, I don't know if you call them they weren't rich kids, but these were progressive teenagers, right? And they ended up in the backwoods of Texas getting slaughtered, right? There was a lot of social commentary layered onto that. You can pick it apart. So when people say this movie's too woke, first of all of them freaking died. They can be woke as they want. They all got slaughtered. Who cares?
That's not true. One survived.
One survived. So I also think people don't know what they want. And we actually had this conversation today. If part 2 came out today, people would hate it. If there was no other Texas Chainsaw Massacre film ever made since 1974 and part 2 came out today, no way people would love it. People love it. It's a great movie. Don't get me wrong. It's an amazing movie.
Yep.
But we also have nostalgia to color it for us. You know what I'm saying? So I just don't, I guess what I'm trying to say is I had fun with it. Did I love it? No. I didn't think it was perfect. I thought Sally was mishandled. I thought it was just weird. I didn't really understand a lot of what they were trying to do with this gentrifying this town, but I guess maybe it was a scam. Maybe I got to watch it again when I'm sober. Who knows, right? But I'll tell you one thing. There was a Texas Chainsaw Massacre in it, and it was fun to watch. And I actually laughed my ass off at the end, especially at the end. I thought, for me, the end, it wrapped it up so well. I don't know if we can say spoilers, but basically when they put something on autopilot, I laughed my ass off. Like she's sticking her head out the window. I'm like, this is the best thing ever. Like how
it was beckoning to happen, wasn't it?
It was just fun. It was fun. I guess what I don't understand, I don't know what people want out of a movie. Do you not want to have fun, or do you like if it didn't have enough gore, people would complain. If it has, I don't get what people. I don't think people know what they want. You know what I'm saying?
I can tell you what I wanted, Ben. I just wanted the original to be a standalone. That's all I want.
Well, that's true, but you know, we've got 8 freaking films later. You know,
yeah.
But again, I will say this. I thought, you know, not having any of the family element was weird. I'm not sure why he was an orphan. I'm not saying it was a great film by any stretch. I'm not trying to like apologize for it.
Of course.
I just thought it was fun and I had a good time. And at the end of the day, that's okay with me. I'm not looking for more than that. If it is more, great, and it fits, fine. But I'm okay also with just having a good time watching a bunch of people get slaughtered by a chainsaw wielding maniac almost 50 years after the original came out. That's cool with me too. You know?
I think the issue for a lot of people was that it was the name. Do you know what I mean? So this is the 9th movie of the franchise, but technically it's now the 2nd.
But we're used to it with Halloween. I mean, look.
I know. But to me, like it'd be a low-rated B, maybe a C movie if it was called, say, Chainsaw, whatever. But
the lad with the skin, man. You know.
Yeah,
I
can appreciate that. I think, you know, there's definitely trying to bank off the legacy and make it, you know, make it a sequel to the original, because that's kind of the thing to do these days, which again, Halloween proved it can be successful to do, you know.
If it's done right, though.
Right. Exactly. And I'm not saying this was done right. No. I feel like they could have done a much different thing. And I do feel like it failed in certain ways. Not to say that I could write a better film. My whole thing is, why all the like real hate? Like I look at some of the comments on the threads that we posted and I'm like, okay, people, it's a movie. Like chill out. Like you can not like it. That's fine. You don't have to love everything that's put out, but oh my God, like simmer down a little bit.
I can kind of get the concept. For me to play devil's advocate for the two boys there, I can get the context that you're coming in with there, in the sense that you went into it not expecting much. You didn't kind of get into it. For Carl, it's probably his favorite, or at least one of his favorite movies of all time. I know it's high up on Greg's list as well. It is for me too, but I wouldn't have been a massive follower of the franchise, like say. You know what I mean? Because of all the, you know, the remakes and the different kind of narratives. 2 for me is still the best one after it, just because I love it.
It's like I saw 2 way late to the party. Like this was like in 2009. Okay, is when the first time I actually watched part 2, which feels like yesterday to me. And at first I was like, "What the hell is this?" Like I really didn't get it. And then I've since seen it several times. I love it. It's a lot of fun. It's just when you're used to the first one and you jump into the second one, you're like, what am I watching? What is this? You know? But I get it. And I understand the context for the time and what Toby was trying to do with it. And so I appreciate it. Because I've always loved the original. The original is such a brutal film, and I've seen it in the theater on an original print, which is amazing. I've seen it, obviously, you know, at home and whatever, but I always find something new when I watch that movie. I always see something or can understand a perspective in a way that I haven't understood before. It's the movie that sort of keeps on giving you that, you know?
Yeah.
Good point.
Which I appreciate and love, and I think was just such a wonderful film. But I also separate myself from that from the rest of the movies, just like Halloween, you know, like as much as I am a Halloween devotee for pretty much the entire franchise, you know, not to say that they're all great. Clearly they're not. Part 1 still is a standalone movie to me, and it always will be, you know, as much as I love part 2 or the new ones, 2018 and Kills, that they're great. I mean, Resurrection's the only one I'll sit here and say that is just should never happen. But at the same time, like I can love the other movies, but it still doesn't affect my feeling for part one. That is always separate, you know?
Yeah.
So like Texas Chainsaw, yeah, this new one with the name and the banking on this 40, 50 years later. Yeah, it's, you know, it's what they're doing these days, but it doesn't hurt the original to me. You know, the original will always be that to me, you know?
I'd probably have the same kind of feeling as you, Ben, in regards to Halloween. You know, that's like that new one, Halloween Kills. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the kills in it and the aggression of Michael Myers, because I'm not as attached to Michael Myers as I am Leatherface, I suppose, from the original.
Right,
you know?
right.
You know, but no, that one film I did really enjoy. Recent one was the new Scream, actually.
Yes,
That was.
I thought that was. I've only saw it the once in the theater so far. I got to watch it again, but I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Very enjoyable film.
But they, you know, the thing about Scream is it's always a whodunit, which is fun, and they always seem to do a pretty good job. You know, again, they're not all the best.
Scooby-Doo for adults, right?
Scooby-Doo, yeah.
Yeah, right. It's like I would have gotten away with it if it weren't for these, you know, if it weren't for Sidney Prescott, right? I thought they reinvented it in a way, and I am very curious now that the next one's been greenlit how they're going to do it. But I have faith in the guys that are doing it, and obviously Kevin Williamson is part of it, at least an executive producer, I think. And I feel like it's in good hands, so I don't really worry about them messing it up too much. But again, even then, it's like it's just gonna be fun watching to figure out who's doing it and all this stuff. Yeah, like at the end of the day, I guess I just, especially at my age now and where I am in my life and all this, you know, you got adult responsibilities and kids and work and all this stuff. It's like I just want to be entertained. And I'm not saying that should be an excuse to put out bad movies. I don't mean that. I just mean like I'm okay with just sitting down and watching a movie and having mindless fun, you know? Yeah. I also like A24 stuff where I watch Midsummer and I'm sitting there going, holy crap. You know what I mean? Like I love that stuff too. I have to be a little bit more in a certain mood to watch those things, but
what's the buzzword for that now? Elevated horror, isn't it? Even though
oh yeah, that word. Which is
I hate that.
I know. It's funny because it's just like when Silence of the Lambs won the Oscars, but it was thriller, it wasn't horror.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
But then I just go, you know what? Who cares? Was it a good movie? Fine. I'm calling Jaws horror. Some people don't call it horror. You know what I mean?
I mean, Jaws is a creature feature, and a creature feature is a certain kind of horror.
Yeah, subgenre, right?
It also may happen to be my favorite subgenre of horror.
Creature features.
No, creature feature.
Greg and myself and Carl have mentioned that before. Actually, on one of our very, very first shows about Jaws being a horror, without a shadow, without it is a horror.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, anything like that shows people getting not even killed, but like hunted down, stalked down,
terrorized.
All right. Yeah, terrorized be the right word. It makes it a horror. I don't care.
Well, I was gonna say because we work with, you know, Universal doing Jaws merchandise, and we had done we really wanted to do this design where we can't use likenesses, so we can't use Roy Scheider or, you know, Richard Dreyfuss. But we wanted to show Quint getting killed, but we couldn't show
Rob Shaw.
Robert Shaw's face. So we had him from behind, and the shark was coming up sort of
deadly.
Up like this, so it was very brooding, right? I thought the concept was great. I thought it looked great. We submitted it, and they're like, "Oh no, it looks like the shark's about to kill him," and we're like,
"He did, didn't he?"
They did.
That's exactly what happens in the movie. Like that's too brutal. You're gonna have to like take. I'm like, but are you watching the same movie we are? Because that's exactly what happens in that film. Or we had an image of the shark coming up and had blood on his teeth, and like, nah, you can't put blood on his teeth. But I'm like, but.
What do you want me to do here?
What movie do you think we watched and loved? You know what I mean?
The irony here, or whatever, it was a PG film, which is so funny. When you watch that movie, 90% of it seems very PG, but I mean, when Quint gets killed, that's pretty brutal, man.
Yeah,
like
that's rough. Even
coming out of his mouth, and it's the whole thing. It's like
even the body on the beach. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
you remember
Or
when?
the port. What's his name? The porthole. Ben.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. When he goes scuba diving, he comes out from the sunken boat and half his eye.
Wasn't there the autopsy scene? Didn't they show some things there or no?
They did.
Yeah.
But so I don't know.
When they cut the tiger shark open.
Oh yeah, that's with the license plate and the boom.
That is rough, actually. Yeah.
It's funny.
Why don't we do a quick fire round? Because Greg, I know you wanted to mention some movies. So why don't we do a quick fire round here, where maybe off the top of our heads, the three of us will pick a movie, and Ben can give us some of his thoughts on them. I'll go first. Let the two boys think, because I'm obviously at the.
I hope I've seen them.
I hope I've seen them.
I'm gonna go Videodrome.
Ooh, it's been a minute since I've seen that, but I remember that was trippy. Like, I enjoyed it. But again, films like that I don't watch often. But I've only seen I've seen it once or twice, but it's been a while. I mean, it was wild. Look, that was one of those that I would see on the shelf and wonder what the hell is that about. And when I finally rented it and went, oh, that is as crazy as the box art is, which was
the reason I asked that is because that's actually true for me. When I first saw it as well, it was one of those where you're like, go down to Chartbusters. Greg will know what I'm talking about there. And
that's where I used to bring out.
Yeah, and you just go, all right, I need to see whatever this is, you know. So I just thought that'd be my first. So the lads can go ahead.
Right, go ahead there, Greg.
Go ahead. Do you want to go, Cal?
All right then. So, I mean, I could go with a normal one, like people would expect me to go with, but I'm gonna go with something that I watched only recently rewatched last week. I was telling the lads about it because it was a long time since I'd seen it before. When a Stranger Calls.
Ooh, I like that one. So, you know, I had seen the original years ago, and then I got I'm gonna get this wrong. I apologize. Was it Vinegar Syndrome that put out the double disc?
I think it might have been something like that. Yeah.
It was When a Stranger Calls, and it was the sequel, which I believe had Jill Schoelen in it, if I'm not mistaken. Which was actually a really good movie. But I watched the original one again. I mean, that was a classic. Like, I think 1 and 2 were very similar, where a lot of stuff happens in the beginning, and then the middle of the film is sort of like, you're just kind of going along, and then the end, a lot of stuff happens. But if you haven't seen the second one, definitely watch it. You'll love it. But I did like the original quite a bit.
Yeah, brilliant. Greg?
As Ian said there, heading to Chartbusters, there was a couple of movies that used to stand out, and one that I used to get all the time, House.
Oh, yeah.
So House, that is another one. Again, going into the movie store, rental store, and seeing that box art. Because I didn't see that in the theater. Well, the first one, it's the pushing the button. The second one was the key, right?
Yeah.
So I saw that box art for quite a while, and finally rented it. And I liked it a lot, and I've since watched it a few times. But that was again, I didn't expect the tone of the movie to be like that based on the box art. I thought it was going to be like scary, but that movie is very bright. I mean, it's even at night, they're inside. There's a lot of lights. Even when Big Ben comes out, it's actually a pretty bright film.
Yeah,
and I like it. It's charming. It's just a fun movie. It's one. Actually, I should show my son that film. He'd like it a lot. Actually, I think he's 12.
Dimes here.
Yeah, he's 12. I mean, he's been watching tons of stuff. I mean, I took him to the new Halloween and new Scream film stuff, and he loves all that. So I think he'd have some fun with it. But that, to me, House is a great 12-year-old sleepover night movie.
Starting
probably like the third movie in the 4 that you're watching that night, and it's on at 1 in the morning.
And half the other sleepover like this.
Yeah.
My final piece in this conversation is obviously because you are such a big fan of the first Halloween movie, like me, because I remember watching it in the kitchen with my cousin on Halloween night. There was a tiny little TV out there while the adults sat in and drank or whatever. And I remember being absolutely terrified. And for me, one of the things that stood out I've mentioned this to Carl and Greg before, is the music and the atmosphere that was created by John Carpenter. and therefore John Carpenter is still my favorite director of all time. So there's two movies of John Carpenter that stand out, along with Halloween, obviously, for me, is The Thing. Well, actually, three. The Thing, The Fog, which I don't think gets enough love, and They Live.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
pretty phenomenal movie.
The Thing is just, I saw it. I forgot when the first time I ever saw The Thing. I think it was a little bit later on, but every time I watch that movie, it gets better and better. And it's almost like every time I watch it, I go, why aren't I watching this more often? And I usually try to watch it once a year. Like
same here.
I agree. The Fog doesn't get enough love because that is a tremendous film. They Live, of course, is an incredible film. I think it's weird to say. I think that does get. I think the level of love in that movie is pretty good because I think a lot of people love that. Right.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say that I don't think it's a lot of love. That personally for me, I think which did was Prince of Darkness.
Oh yeah,
love that film, and I remember seeing that shortly after it came out. I think that came out in '87. So I think I saw it probably when it hit video, probably 80, 89. I think there's something about that movie that I just don't feel like people talk about it enough. You know what I mean? Like,
great movie, yeah.
But it's so good. I don't know if it's the claustrophobic feeling because they're stuck in that church all night, or the weird dreamy quality. And you got Alice Cooper and this, like, what's going on? Like,
and the Chinese guy who was in Big Trouble in Little China. I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, exactly.
I
can't remember. And Donald Pleasance, of course. And it's just, and it really, if you watch that movie again, it gets right into it. Like, and the steady beat of the music, the dun 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 dun. It's like the first 10 minutes of the movie while things are happening. It's like they're all setting this up. It's almost like it jumps right in. I think we people talk about They Live, which they should, because it's a freaking amazing movie. And The Thing gets a ton of love now, which obviously it didn't at the time when it came out. And I agree with you. I think The Fog probably should be talked about a little bit more. But I'm sitting there going, what about Prince of Darkness? Like, this movie is amazing.
It's a good show. Good show. Yeah.
I mean, if I'm talking John Carpenter movies, it's got to be Big Trouble in Little China, my favorite.
Well, I mean, that's.
But that's not quite horror. But it's not quite.
But it's funny, that movie.
Scary as a kid, though, right?
Yeah, it's not quite any kind of genre. It's a mashup of every genre you can think of.
Yeah, like,
you know what though?
They Live
mentioned the claustrophobia. In fairness, I think you do get that claustrophobia in the scenes where they're on the street and you've got the four guys coming down, like, one from the sky that shoots on the left.
Oh yeah, they're in the alley and it's all blocked off. I mean, because that's the thing. Like, They Live is horror, but it's Western. Whereas and that's even kind of done in the music. You can hear that in the music.
Yeah.
Big Trouble, it's hard to pigeonhole that. And it's funny because I've tried to remember how many times I've seen that film, and it's a lot. Like, I've seen it in the theater a couple times. I've seen it, I showed my family and like my kids and stuff. I've seen it like dozens of times at this point. And it's funny, I still can't in my mind put it in a place. It's just there. Yeah. Like, and I don't mean like genre necessarily, but like it's almost like I have to rewatch it to relive it and experience it because it's so crazy. Like, they're doing the thing, and it's like this brain thing. It's like a fever dream. Whereas, like, I can think of They Live or The Fog or Halloween and be like, oh yeah, this is this. Big Trouble exists in this, like, he could just have done what he wanted to do. Like, it's almost like, here's a budget, we don't care what you do, and he just threw everything at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you were to put me on the spot, I would say sci-fi. But
okay, I would. Yeah, if I had to really pick a shelf at a video store to put that on, I would probably put it on sci-fi before I'd put it on horror. Even though I understand we all kind of
good show.
Yeah. Good show. That'd be mine. I did love, wasn't it John Carpenter's Vampires?
He did.
Yeah.
With the one was John Bon Jovi.
Yeah, that was John Carpenter. I only saw that once, and admittedly, I fell asleep during it. But it was at like 5 a.m. So I mean,
it's going to turn into a John Carpenter show soon because I was like, Assault on Precinct 13. He's watching me. For anyone that's never seen that,
I'll break up the Carpenter love here just for the sake of the show.
Yeah,
another great film. What about let's go a bit more modern. What about Devil's Rejects?
I love that film. So I know people have their thing about Rob Zombie in his film.
Yeah.
when I saw House of Thousand Corpses, I thought this is insane. Like
Yeah,
I
I love it.
understood it was very referential to House by the
Texas
Cemetery,
Chainsaw 2 as well.
and yeah, and you know, Texas Chainsaw, all that stuff.
Mm.
But I loved the music video aspect of it, if you will,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
or MTV aspect of it. And so when I went to Devil's Rejects, I remember seeing it, I believe the day it came out in the theater. And it was such a different experience because it was a different take on the same family, but it was so much more
Gritty.
dark and gritty. And I'm like,
yeah,
I'll be honest, I haven't revisited it that much, only because it is kind of like really dark, you know?
It's not an easy watch.
No,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's not an easy watch. And you know, when I went into Three from Hell, I was thinking, okay, you know, and I'd actually I had talked to Rob about it because we worked with him, and he was like, you know, nobody knows what this movie is going to be about. Everyone's got it wrong, because this was right back when it was all speculation. He's like, nobody knows. Like, it's like everyone thinks they know. No one's gotten it right yet.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and be like, he didn't even know at that stage.
Well, here's the thing. He had to do a lot of jockeying around that film because of Sid Haig, unfortunately. He showed up for the set and he was not well. But, you know, that movie, here's what I did not like about that movie is I thought he basically castrated the Otis character. I feel like Otis to me what's that?
He locked him up basically.
Yeah, like
right in
Devil's Rejects, he is the nastiest. And then in Three from Hell, he just felt like not that way in a way. But I also appreciate there's an arc to his character, and he didn't become a parody of himself, I guess. So I appreciate, look, I've always been like, because like I went to the movie with my buddy of mine, and my buddy of mine didn't like it. Actually, was it that one, or it might have been, no, I'm sorry, it was 31, I think. I can't remember. It was one of them.
Didn't enjoy that.
And he goes, oh, I hated it. I said, well, do you like Rob Zombie films? He goes, no. I'm like, then why would you like this one? It's like saying, I hate Big Macs and I'm going to go to McDonald's. Every time you eat Big Mac, it tastes the same. And I'm not trying to say all of Rob Zombie's films are the same, but he has a certain quality to him and style that if you don't like it, you're probably not going to like it. Now, that remains to be seen with the Munsters, because I don't think he's going to do the same thing with the Munster.
No.
I'd be very
I mean, you could tell going into 31 that what you're getting. You can kind of tell with Three from Hell what you're going to get. So if you don't like it because you don't like all his other films, then shame on you. But I didn't hate Three from Hell. I just didn't like love it like I did House and Devil's Rejects.
I was the same.
I went when I was waiting for that to come out. I went into it going, this is going to be atrocious, because obviously it had been 17 years or 16 years, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
And obviously everyone knew Sid Haig, and he passed away before it came out over here. So I was very intrigued as to see how they were going to deal with his character, because obviously he wasn't going to be able to do much. And when it came out, I sat there and I watched it. The kids were in school, and I was like, I'll throw this on for an hour and a half. And I remember sitting there, and I got kind of into it, and then it just kind of went off on a tangent, and I was like, what's going on here? Why are they in Mexico? I was like, what is going on? Is this turning into From Dusk Till Dawn or something else?
Well, that's the thing. Like, I actually enjoyed like Pancho and Sherry's scenes. I thought those were really good.
Yeah.
I listen, I thought it had something to it. It didn't grab me the way I thought it was going to, like Devils did. But you know what? Good on Rob for doing his own thing. You know, I'll say this about, not to keep looping it back to Halloween, but I did not like Halloween 2 when it came out. But when I watched his commentary and I watched the director's cut, I was blown away. And I have a much more appreciation for that film. It's still not what I would want in a Halloween film, but when I hear what he's saying and what he's doing, I go, oh, well, this all makes a lot more sense. I don't have to love it, but it definitely fits to me more, as opposed to just going, screw that film, you know?
I mean, when there's context to not liking something, it makes more sense. But when you're watching something going, I didn't like this because it wasn't like the other one, and then you hear, well, I want to change from this to try and make things better. You go, okay, you have a different view on it. You might like it still, but it helps.
It helps to understand what they were going for, the ideas that they were trying to put on the screen, and then when you can contextualize it, then again, I appreciate it for what it is. Do I watch it all the time? No, but I'll tell you, it's not one that I'll shut off. Whereas Resurrection, I will shut off that film. I actually sat through it again, probably for the first time since the theater. Now, I'd seen the beginning a bunch of times and the endings and stuff, but I hadn't really sat down and watched the whole movie this past October, and I was like, it was a slog, man. Getting through that film, I was like, this is why I don't watch this every year. You know?
I mean, I go through the Wrong Turn franchise once a year at least, and there's not one of them that I won't sit and enjoy. Actually, that's not true. 3 I don't enjoy. But like I can put on most franchises and I'll rewatch them. I've rewatched Saw many a time. I've rewatched Nightmare on Elm Street. And obviously, the T-shirt is Nightmare on Elm Street 2, but that is by far and away the worst.
And you think that's the worst one of the franchise?
Yeah.
Really?
It's funny. There's some bad ones in that franchise. No, sorry, that's not true. The 2010 one is the worst.
Well, okay, let's omit that one. But
yeah,
I don't know, man. Like, I mean, I did not like 2 growing up because it didn't fit with 1, 3, and 4, and 5, right? Like those all had an arc. What's that?
It was just so random.
Well, it was. I've grown to appreciate it more, and obviously, it's you know, like a lot of these films that we all hated as kids, they're starting to come around and get more love. I think it's also one I like because I haven't seen it a lot. Like I have not seen it nearly as many times as I've seen part 3 or 4. You know.
Yeah.
I will say on a rewatch, this was like 10 years ago. I rewatched them all like in succession. You know, I've seen them all various times. But it was the first time I'd really sat down and watched part 6 in a long time. I saw 6 when it came out in the theater, and I think I saw it again at one point. What's that? No, that's 5. 5 is the Dream Child.
5, sorry, yeah.
Freddy's Dead, sorry.
Yeah, that's
I'll
right.
tell you, did not like that film, like hardly at all. Like that was a rough one. Like for me personally, that's like bottom of the franchise. Like New Nightmare is fun. That's a fun one to, you know.
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, that was a different film. You know, it was different from, that was what, 94, so that would predate Scream, right?
Yeah. Just that was the one before Scream, yeah. Scream was 95.
How cool of Wes to reinvent himself in the genre and the franchise, like absolutely. Amazing.
I mean, he reinvented himself with Scream, and then he reinvented Scream later on to try and keep it relevant. Which was a sign of his genius as well, and I mean he made a lot of good movies in the process as well. Like there's some there that he does. My Salted Take was one that he done that doesn't I don't think gets a lot of love. And what's the one with Amber Heard? The Ward.
Yeah, I remember that. I never saw that. But was that? Wait a minute. That was Wes Craven.
Wes Craven on The Ward, yeah.
It was, yeah. I did not like that one bit.
I actually am not familiar with his later works.
Yeah, My Salted Take was a very good one as well.
That was good.
But yeah, like I Nightmare on Elm Street for me, the first one was the one that started me into horror. It was the very first horror film that I remember watching. Like, so that franchise always holds quite a high thing, but. There's so many bad entries that have gone into most franchises, and it's kind of very sad to see how it's going. Like,
I think, like when I think of those franchises, I look at them as snapshots of time. One of the things, like I'll always say, like Halloween's my favorite movie of all time, and Michael Myers probably my favorite killer. But I almost think the Friday the 13th franchise is my favorite because. Like I was saying before, there's one every year, and when I look at part 4, I know that that's like 84. Like it feels like 1984 to me, whereas part 5 feels like 1985, 1986, right? And part 6, like they're all these because they came out in such quick succession, and they're all sort of tied together, but really not, and it's a whole mess. They all have these unique thumbprint of the times of them, which is what I really like about Nightmare. Like. part 3 in 87 like it was obviously dark, but it started the comedy element with, well, a little bit more of the comedy element with Freddy, you know.
Yeah,
but
two is the comedy one.
I love 4 so much because it's the height of this. I mean, 1988, the height of like MTV, and now like horror has become this like starting to become almost a parody of itself in certain ways. And you've got a freaking talking Freddy doll, which I have in the background. You can see it right up there. You know, it's like, I mean, you've got like, I remember there was a special, I have it on tape still, and I recently got it transferred digitally. There was a behind the scenes special of Nightmare on Elm Street 4 that came out on primetime that it was amazing. Oh, Freddy's Nightmares, you could watch Freddy at Friday nights at like 11 or whenever it was on.
That's after getting signed to, I think it might be Paramount Plus. They're going to re-bring in the old show where you can actually watch, because it's near impossible to find now.
Yeah, Screambox has it now. I don't know if Screambox is available to you guys, but I don't know much about Screambox.
I think it's got to be Paramount Plus over here for us.
That's interesting. Probably just for you guys, because for us, it would probably have to be HBO Max because it's a Warner Brothers property, but I could be wrong.
I'm a VPN wizard with that, so I'm sure Screambox.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think then VPN and do Screambox. I have the whole series that I bought at a convention, and you know, it's bootleg DVDs. But
brilliant.
I just bought who was it? Shoot, I can't remember the company that just did it. They just did the double LP of the music from it, which is pretty awesome.
Wow.
But it's just, I look at that as more nostalgia for me because it was of the time that I remember growing up in, and like he was this child. Well, they dropped the molester part after a while, but he was a child killer. He was basically a superhero and a rock star.
Yeah.
You know, in 1988, 89, he was like popular. You know, like it's amazing.
To me, like as far as I remember, if I can remember correctly, I don't think they ever actually mentioned the word molester in the original one. They imply it was the Jackie L. Haley one. They intently put that word.
Yeah, that they obviously played it up there. I feel like though you could be right, but I thought they said it in the original, but never after the original. But I could. I
might be wrong. I'd have to rewatch it just to make sure. But
yeah, I mean, I've seen that movie 100 times, but now I can't even remember if they mentioned.
I know they showed a scene where the kids are coming up with scrapes on their back and all, and it's just left to your.
That was. What movie was that? Because that wasn't the original, right? They didn't show any of.
No, in the newer one, the newest one.
Oh, yeah.
So they really played it off, and like I know what they were trying to do was change him back to be hated again, because obviously Freddy was the one that kind of changed the slasher genre when he came in, because he made it into Hot Topic, he made it onto TV shows. Right. It was a different angle on slashers.
Well, he made it cool, you know, and then even Jason followed. I mean, Jason was on Arsenio Hall. I mean, you know, you know, by the time you have a sequel or you're taking Manhattan, and you know what I mean, like, I love 88, 89 because there was some crazy stuff going on. Even the Halloween franchise got weird with the Man in Black and stuff. Like, it was just such a weird time, and then they tried to go even crazier with these franchises. Again, Freddy's Dead took a weird turn, and Jason goes to Jason X, but even Jason Goes to Hell. I remember seeing that in the theater going, where the hell's Jason? You know what I mean?
Do you remember that was the one that set up the Freddy versus Jason crossover, wasn't it?
You can't imagine. We were in the theater, and when that glove comes up, we were screaming. It was awesome. And then, of course, we had to wait 10 years for it to actually happen, but it was worth it. I actually liked Freddy versus Jason quite a bit.
Yeah, like I love Freddy versus Jason, but in terms of if you went and watched that for the first time as a new horror fan, you're gonna say that that's absolutely crap.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't. Some of the effects don't hold up, unfortunately, but it was.
The idea was nice.
I thought it was brutal. What's that?
I said the idea was nice.
Yeah.
It was always great seeing Kelly Rowland getting smashed off a tree too.
Jesus.
Well, right, guys, as you say that, I think we're time to wrap up now because we could go in for another 3 to 4 hours on this alone. But Ben, obviously, it's been a pleasure having you on. I know you're a busy man yourself, but before we do go, why don't you let our listeners know especially over here in Ireland and Europe, as you break into the European market now. Hopefully more so now that obviously COVID restrictions are starting to lift worldwide, and people are still on that online shopping buzz. Why don't you tell people what you've got and where they can find you, and why they should?
So you can find us at frightrags.com. It's fright-rags.com. All socials at Fright Rags, one word. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, that type of thing. We've got releases coming up every week. We've got Basket Case coming up soon. We've got The Thing. We've got Halloween 3. We've got some stuff coming up. So nice. It's pretty much jam-packed. We've got a packed schedule pretty much every week. And actually March, I think we've got even more than once a week in some cases. So constantly putting out new shirts, and we've got other things in the work. We've got hats and lounge pants and just tons of stuff that we're working on. So, sign up for our newsletter. We do an SMS newsletter as well, or for texting as well as email, that you can stay up to date on all the releases.
Awesome. And this show here and Fright Rags may be announcing something soon. Who knows? But until next time, guys, this has been absolutely phenomenal. Ben, thank you once again.
Thank you, Ben.
For coming on. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
And until next week, don't forget the reason we do this show on a Friday night is why, guys?
It's horror
night.
Damn straight. Listen, until next week, like Ben said, go to their website, buy yourself something cool. You've seen his cool merch that he sells. Go and check it out. If you don't know it, we implore you to do so. You're going to see us wearing some of that sexy merch over the coming weeks. And until next time, for the On the Slab Horror Show, we are over and out.